Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep. I'm joined today by my co-host, Jen. Hey, Jen.
Hi, I am so excited to be here today. We have a wonderful guest who I met at the Women in Insurance event a couple months ago, and I just knew immediately I had to have her on because she just has such a wonderful story.
Yeah, and you knew you needed to have her on, and she couldn't speak when you met her. So that has a lot to say about her as a person. That you loved her so much before, she couldn't even talk to you.
No, she had laryngitis and she had no voice, but just her spirit and her energy was enough to know that I needed to meet her more and that everyone else needed to meet her and hear her story too.
And I can't agree more. I just think it's hilarious that your first meeting you were speaking and she was giving you 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
But in any event, we are joined by Claudia Oliveri, and you're gonna love her. We love her. She can talk today, so we're not bringing on a mute podcast guest. She has a voice, and you're gonna love to hear what she has to say. So with that, let's bring her in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.
Good afternoon, Claudia. Welcome to Claims Never Sleep. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here with you.
And you and I just met, but you and Jen go way, way back a few weeks.
A few months, actually. Yeah.
Yes, I guess a few months. Yes. But we were just talking about you guys. You connected at the, I'm going to butcher the name, but at a recent conference in South Carolina that you both just love and can't, I don't think I've heard anyone say anything negative about.
Absolutely not. It's Execu Summit's Women in Insurance Leadership. And Jen and I, we connected there for the first time. Was so happy to meet with her. It's a wonderful, wonderful conference where you meet other women in the legal and insurance market, and you just exchange stories. You learn from each other. You help guide them and support them. I've loved this conference since it first started years ago.
Yeah, I need to get myself there because Jen went for the first time last year and raved about it. And then raved about it again this year. I think your only complaint was maybe the food.
Yes, and how Claudia and I connected is I randomly sat at her table at dinner. I mean, it was jam-packed, super loud in this restaurant, and I saw an empty, everyone's like searching for spots, and I saw an empty seat, and I was like, I'm just sitting here, I'm claiming this is my own, and and Claudia had no voice. So while we got to know each other, she reminded me of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Steals her voice, like she was trying to use her hands.
Wow.
Yes, I appreciated Jennifer's patience and consideration because all I could do was whenever anyone would say anything, and I just totally lost my voice. And I wasn't even speaking, quite frankly, but
no, and I really admired her perseverance because if that were me and I told her this, the second night of dinner it was so loud and it was crowded. Yes. And, it was about an hour before we even sat down. So people had a lot of cocktails and I would have been like, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm putting on my robe and I'm climbing into bed with some tea. But she sat there and hung in and, listened to everybody's stories and gave a bunch of thumbs ups.
Yes, a lot of thumbs up. But I totally enjoyed learning more about Jennifer and her firm, your firm, and learning about all the other women at our table. Just a great, great experience.
All right. So maybe next year I will make it.
Do we know
where it is next year?
I believe they really want to do it at the same place, Isle of Palm, right?
Yes. And it was just the setting was amazing. I mean, I want to go back with my family. It's right on the water. It's beautiful. I got to play tennis. There were tennis courts. It was perfect. It was a perfect location.
All right. So maybe next year. Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, Claudia, you shared before we started that you are a recent fan of the podcast and you started to listen in, which I thank you for that. But from being a recent fan, you probably have noticed a trend to how I do these podcasts, that we initially start talking about, how you got to where you are. And, and I asked this of everyone, whether or not you're in claims or you've been an attorney, practicing attorney, and then you move over to claims, because I'm always so curious, because everyone has such a different and interesting path. And, you did go to law school and you did practice for some time. So
Yes.
let's start with how you came about to decide, like, what brought you to law school. Were you like me, that I didn't know what else to do, or did you have a plan?
Exactly. I was a first generation student, or college student, and my parents came here from Italy, and so they were very, very much gung-ho that the daughter as well as the son needed to go to college and even graduate school. But I didn't know what to do with my liberal arts degree. I loved, who does? And I thought, okay, graduate school, but what kind of graduate school? I don't want to stay years and years of studying. And I just fell into law because I thought they may be able to teach me some good skills that I could use to market myself and find a job. And who wouldn't say, I'm a lawyer, Back then, you're in your 20s and you're thinking, give me the title. And now years later, it's not as important as quality of life. But I went to law school in New York Law School. And I have to say, it was just as they said it would be. They scare you to death the first year, kill you the second, and bore you the third. So I didn't start learning what it meant to be a practicing attorney, until I started practicing.
Oh, yeah, because why teach you that skill?
Right, exactly. Just memorize all these laws that you may never use, but
but they're going to make you think are really important.
Very much so. Very much so. So I started learning to be an actual lawyer in terms of marketing myself to clients, and learning how to be an analytical and deductive thinker, and also think what your client wants. When I started practicing, and I was with an insurance law boutique out here in New York, and I was with them for 14 years, and I learned a lot with them, and they exposed me to London insurance market and Lloyd's, and that was a great experience, a learning opportunity there. And, after a while, most people start wondering, okay, is this it? The law firm life, trying to ascend up to partnership level. And I decided, maybe I should follow my other colleagues who went in-house, as they like to call it, into the insurance companies, the claims departments. And I looked out, I had a hustle. This is where connecting with your network of men and women, and it leads you to potential job opportunities. And I landed at Starr, where I am currently. I've been with them for about 10 years in the claims department. Yeah.
So I have a question, though. When you were practicing, because you said something that keyed me into this, so did you have like a mentor or multiple mentors that really kind of taught you the business aspect of that? And I ask it because I think a lot of people don't get that.
Yes.
And you have to really kind of search for it, or you're in the right place that gets that. But so did you have that, or did you have to kind of like needle your way in?
That's a good question. I did have a number of partners, males, that they took me under their wing.
Yep.
And they taught me what you needed to do to market yourself, to market the firm, what you need to do as you're interacting with clients outside of a business setting, because we did a lot of marketing at pubs and restaurants and dance floors, things of that nature, right?
Your marketing sounds a lot more fun than what I was having.
It was a lot of fun when I was younger. Nowadays, I don't know how I did it. But that was eye-opening, because you're not taught these types of traits or skills when you're at school. But in terms of branding yourself as a woman lawyer, I didn't quite have that mentor or sponsorship. And that I find is extremely important. And I'm glad to see it nowadays in law firms, within companies. And I didn't see it that often, or at least I wasn't exposed to it when I was practicing law.
Yeah. And I had a similar, like, I was lucky to have some strong female mentors, and I had some strong male mentors who all taught me different things, you know, and different ways to approach, you know, those marketing scenarios. And, you know, some, like, I remember before I was going to some marketing event, and I was early on, and went into the partner's office, and I was like, oh, I'm going to this tonight. And I was wearing this like really colorful dress, and I mentioned it to her. I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing this colorful dress because I feel like I'll stand out. And she's like, oh, I've taught you well.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, because it was just like, you want to stand out, but you don't want to stand out too much. But you don't want to be a wallflower and be forgettable. So you had to have something and I'm a smaller person too, so I needed something to
that was
distinguish
great.
myself.
Absolutely great. You know, a lot of the women that I grew up in the ranks or worked up through the ranks, we wore drab gray, black, navy suits, and you don't stay out, you know, you don't stand out that way, and you're trying to copy your male counterparts, but that doesn't help. Really, you do want to stand out in some way. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was having, you know, talking about strong female mentors. Do you find now in your current role that you try to provide that to the other women in your company? I mean, I know working in an insurance company is different than a law firm, but still you need someone to look up to and to learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love my team. I've got a phenomenal team here at Starr on the EPL side, and I do my very best to encourage both my male and female direct reports. You know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Not that I'm trying to get rid of you, but you need to think 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. Do you see yourself here? Do you want to do something else? And I do my best to encourage them to go to industry events, to encourage them to do public speaking, not only internally, you know, before underwriters and the senior claims management, but also at these industry events like Execu Summit, because they're phenomenal opportunities to showcase who you are and your skill and your intelligence. And I enjoy that tremendously. I'm also part of the Bridge. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a great organization where we promote women in insurance and try to mentor each other, and they have a great mentorship mentorship program, and I've been taking part in it for the past 3 years, and I love just working one-on-one with people who are just starting out in insurance, whether they're in the legal, broker, or insurance company area. And I learn from them as much as they learn from me. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
That's
So,
wonderful.
Just to back up slightly, so when you were practicing, you said you were at like a boutique insurance defense. What type of work were you doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, initially when I first started out as a junior associate, it was a lot of insurance defense work, you know, in New York and Connecticut, auto accidents or slip and fall, we would be retained by the insurance companies. And then within about 2 or 3 years, I was introduced to EPL. And that was a huge turning point for me. I mean, the subject matter was far more interesting, of course. And we were internally handling claims, almost like a TPA, monitoring council, for a number of London insurance companies. And that's what I did for those remaining years at the insurance boutique law firm. And we just handled claims. I worked my way up to managing a team of attorneys, a team of legal professionals that would handle the claims. And sometimes I'd have the opportunity to draft policy wordings for our London insurers. Sometimes they would send us out to the individual insureds at their companies to try to educate them about discrimination, sexual harassment, retaliation claims, how to best set up proper protocols and procedures. And that was a lot of fun as well, because so many of these insureds are completely ignorant of the laws and how best to approach claims. And I enjoyed just giving them my advice, telling them to reach out if they ever needed help. And a lot of them did. Yeah.
And how did, and maybe you did talk about this, but so you eventually made the jump over to Starr. So were they like a client of yours, or was it, or?
No, that was me hustling.
Okay.
As I said, I was lucky that I had good male mentors at my law firm, and as much as our primary clients were London insurers, they also made connections in the U.S. domestic sphere, and so they gave me a list of clients, friends, and I just went down that list, reached out to them via telephone, via email, asking them just for a few minutes of their time, meeting with them, buying them a drink or coffee if that's when they wanted to meet, just talking about myself, my interests, and all of them were so helpful and interested in trying to pay it forward and connect me with someone else until I got to the hiring manager over at Starr, who was at that time, 10 years ago, they were looking to grow the claims department and bring in the claims, at least the financial lines claims from a TPA. And it was lucky for me. The opportunity was right there. I impressed them enough during the interview that they hired me as a claims manager.
Well, it's funny you say you were lucky enough, because to me that sounds like grit and perseverance. And
I should, absolutely. I shouldn't say lucky, right? I should say I worked my ass off to get.
Yes, you should say that.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
I mean, that just highlights something that I think we as women do too often, is we like downplay the hard work we put in, and we're like, oh, it just happened. I was just lucky.
Right.
No, you worked your ass off.
Exactly. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years at Starr, working my way up to then currently head the EPO claims, working very hard, mentoring as best as I can so I can keep my team intact, a team of great professionals who do like working with us. That's really important for me. I want them to enjoy coming into the office, enjoy that they are not only doing their job, but also have the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to engage in the industry, to make their own ties, to seek their own mentors, and to shine.
Have you found that throughout your time, like managing your department and leading your team, not to say anything specifically about anyone who's on your team, but what are some of the challenges you see with like the younger group rising up? Like, do you experience that? Like, I know the challenges I see, so I'm curious to see like what you see as to work ethic or presence at work in general. Like,
in general,
those challenges. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know with respect to the insurance industry, they tend to follow the financial services industry, and they're very, you got to wear a suit. You need to come into the office 5 days a week. You need to put your nose to the grindstone, things of that nature. And I've appreciated this, where I've learned you should have a work-life balance. You should be open to a flexible work schedule. I wasn't taught that as I worked through, graduated from college and law school.
Wow. I was taught, especially then.
Like, exactly. 9 to 5, if not more hours.
9 to 7, like 8 to 7, more like it.
I mean, I had days where I slept under my desk because I was tired. Yes.
I never did that, but oh man.
I had to have some long nights. But so I've learned from my current team of young professionals, millennials and Generation Z, they're very much into mental health. They're very much into a flexible work schedule. And it is challenging because as managers, you also have to make sure that the team is meeting all of the metrics, all of the goals that the company wants. And so I'm juggling, listening to them, making sure that they have the resources and the capabilities and the grace to be able to get their work done within the hours that they can provide us without pissing off anyone in higher management. And it hasn't been bad. I think the pandemic actually changed a number of people in senior management embracing the work-life ethic, embracing or being open to a flexible work schedule. And I do my best to promote that, to seek that out for my team. I see that when we do that as managers, they appreciate it and they give you 110% right back. And you have those stray
Yes, you
that
do.
take advantage, and you pull them in, you corral them in and say, no, don't do that. But for the most part, my team's pretty good. They know when they have to put in long hours. Sometimes they work on weekends, God bless them, if there's an emergency. But for me, it's open communication, open door policy. If there's any issues, come on by, we'll work it out. I do my best to advocate for them, even if it's an uncomfortable position to be in, because that's just your role as a manager.
Yeah. But I do, I'm glad you say that there are those ones that do take advantage, because I also feel like that is highlighted more than the flip side. But I think maybe because you've experienced it, when it happens, it's happening and you're so annoyed and aggravated about it that it stands out in your mind more so than those who aren't taking advantage, because the ones who aren't taking advantage aren't bothering you.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not fair to the ones that are actually doing their best and following, the rules. And because you're right, when you point out, you see the ones that are not, the strays that are not following the dictates or the rules that are set down. And that's to our detriment, because if the company gets angry enough, they may withdraw the work-life balance or the 2 or 3 days in the office and 2 remote. And then that doesn't benefit the entire team or the entire company.
Right.
So I find during my meetings, I kind of politely remind everyone, hey, be considerate of your teammates. Try to come in as often as you can so that your senior management can see you. That way they won't be suspicious that you're not actually working.
The one thing that we talked about earlier is with the difference between practicing and doing insurance defense and actually working for the insurance company is knowing the inner workings of the insurance company.
Absolutely.
How that is generally not explained to lawyers and associates.
No, that's a great question. And I can tell you, when I first started at Starr, it was an eye-opener to learn how an insurance company, the inner workings of an insurance company, because as a lawyer, all I cared about was, okay, is my final work product pristine and correct and written in such a compelling way? But I never looked at the bigger picture in a sense of, when this work product is before my client in the insurance company, is it going to help them meet their goals or benefit them in some way? Maybe taking a case all the way to trial is not exactly the most cost-effective way of resolving a claim for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, not the most cost-effective way
Exactly.
to do many things.
Absolutely.
It might be the best choice for that particular file, but it's definitely not the most cost-effective.
Absolutely. And I still have some lawyers who really want to prove their worth and say, I can win this for the insured. And I go, I don't doubt that. But at the end of the day, do you really want to drag the insured and the company through trial, through appeals, through depositions, especially if the case may not be as great as you think it is?
Yeah.
So it was eye-opening to me, learning all of that all these years at Starr. And I do my best to try to work with lawyers who are very open to engaging in, okay, let's look at a different strategy than the litigation strategy. Lawyers who will take into account, okay, what are the insurance company's goals as well? I mean, ultimately they represent the insured, but I appreciate attorneys and lawyers that they'll ask the claims managers, the claims adjusters, okay, how do you feel? What are you looking for? Let's see if all of the interests align to get to the end result.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think I'm one of the rare people who went from claims back to practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've, been in both hats, but now I'm back to the original one. And I think I was telling you, we do a training for our associates.
That's great. Yeah, I loved hearing that.
And we talked to them about that because, at the end of the day, was it 92 to 94% of cases are going to settle. So why are we spending all this money to do discovery and to file motions when we could just settle it at the outset?
Right.
And so sometimes it's to our detriment. Meghan and I both just, we're talking about this. We're still a new office, so we're not 100% busy, but we keep settling all of our cases right at the outset. What kind of business model is this?
Yes, we're terrible business people. Maybe, I don't know.
I think you're great. You're great business people, because the insurance industry will be like, yeah, we want to work with Meghan and Jennifer over at Cruiser Mitchell. They get things done. They get things done quick.
But it is funny though, because I've gone through so many phases of my career, and all of which I think have been beneficial to where I am now. But at the very early stages of my career, I was definitely going through okay, you get a file, you answer, like you go do a site visit, because I still do lots of premises and GL type work. You get the file, you do a site visit, you meet in person with the insured, then you answer discovery. In fact, you meet with the insured again to answer discovery.
Yeah.
And it was in all these steps. Now I would be like, well, what am I gaining for the end game by doing this step? But those steps at that time were very important, because I was learning all those processes. But now I've learned the processes, and I'm not to say that they shouldn't happen. I just think they need to happen in the right situation. And I'm very thankful that I did learn them. But now you're like, okay, well, do I need to do a site visit? What am I going to gain out of that time that's spent there? Sometimes, yes, you need to do that. Sometimes you need to have your actual eyes on it, and sometimes you don't. Like if it's a raised sidewalk, you might not need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, and I just thought of this now listening to you talk about your way of managing, is you talk to your team, what's your 5-year goal? What's your 10-year goal? Yeah. And at the end of the day, you might lose a great team member because you want them to have a better result at the end of the day. Like, you're not doing it for your own personal benefit. You are setting somebody up to have a win. And I think it's kind of that same analogy, right? Like, we may be at our business detriment for settling these cases early, but at the end of the day, it really is better for everybody. So maybe I think it's just that we're kind of bigger picture people rather than, we're not taking it one step at a time. We're looking at what's the overall goal.
Yeah, one of my former mentors told me, Claudia, you got to think outside of the box. And one of my current members, who's been in the industry for close to 40 years, said, you got to think strategically.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. You don't want to lose a great teammate, but when they grow, it's a reflection of your interaction with them, that they've learned from you. And you also have a long-standing colleague as well. You never know. It's such a small industry. They may come back. You may work with them again as well.
Yeah. And when you get to work with them again at like a later point in your career, that you might be working with them in a different manner. Like you're more like partners, so to speak, or, like rather than, supervisor and
right. Or it could be the other way around. I could be managed by them. I'll be reporting to them. Yeah. It happens. And that's great. Some people may be offended by it, but I view it as what a great achievement, that this person has grown and progressed in their career to the point that they're now supervising or managing people.
Well, but I also think that there comes a certain amount of maturity to get to that point too, because I think back to my immature self and I remember feeling when I would see, another attorney, getting whatever case, or they would say, oh, I I met so and so, like a potential client lead, and I would always feel like like I'm behind and like or and like jealous, rather than being like, okay, that's what they're doing, just because they're doing, like, there's lots of pie out there. There's lots of opportunities. Like, why am I getting upset about them having a great opportunity when I should just be happy for them? It's a very much of a scarcity mindset, rather than
Yes.
just all good things will come, right?
Right. No, I agree with you totally, Megan. I mean, I myself, we're all human.
Yes.
If I hear of a colleague that may have acquired a new title or gained a new account, that first instinct is, oh my God, I missed out.
Yes.
Why? But then I have to pull back, take a step back, look at it unemotionally, and be happy for that person. Yeah, because he or she must have gotten that new account or that new title because they worked hard. And they deserved it. And that doesn't mean that my working hard, I won't get the same recognition down the road. Maybe if not within the same company, at a different company, who knows? But you're right. It's a scarcity. People are very driven by their ego, by their pride, sometimes by their arrogance, and it could be detrimental.
Yeah, and it also can be just poisonous, right? Like, if you're
Yes.
around that a lot, it just can infiltrate and infiltrate yourself. Like, I found there was a time that I would let it like eat me up. And finally, you get to a point and you just let it go.
Absolutely.
The one thing.
I'm sorry, Jen. Go
No,
ahead.
you finish. I was going to switch topics, so you finish your.
Oh, no. The one thing is, that's why I love this Women in Insurance Leadership, and whenever most of the women lawyers like to get together for dinners or lunches, they do their best to promote each other, to support each other, to give guidance and assistance and connections, without even expecting anything in return. I love seeing that, and I try my best to emulate it as well, because it is so beneficial all around.
Yes, the tit for tat mentality, I'm not on board.
Yeah.
I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Like,
right.
It's not my jam.
And that is why that conference is so great, is I feel like people are there to forge authentic relationships, and they're not there to find out what they could get from other people. It's not.
Absolutely.
So you don't go home with like a million business cards to like, can I get business from you? It's not about that. It's just about meeting other really cool women and seeing how you can lift each other up, which it doesn't happen at a lot of these other industry conferences.
I mean,
absolutely.
It's frankly how this podcast has become what it is, because it's, for me, it started as just a organic way to connect during COVID, when I found that we were having all those coffee chats and I hated them. I'm like, these feel so just awkward and weird, and we're not having normal conversations. And it was a time, there was no conferences, there was none of that happening. I'm like, I need a better way to just connect with people. And that's kind of where this came from. I'm like, I just want to have normal conversations without the pretense of, okay, well, when are we getting business?
Yeah.
So the topic I wanted to pivot to was about your parents coming here from Italy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Grow up in, right. English was not your first language, correct? You spoke Italian when you were
Italian.
younger?
Yeah, Italian was my first language because my parents did not speak a lick of English. Yeah, I mean, it was during the 1970s, and there wasn't a lot of work because they're originally from Sicily. And so most people would travel up north where the factories were, or they would go to other countries, US being one of them. And my aunt on my dad's side had already been here, and she called them up and said, listen, there's only a small window of opportunity for me to be able to sponsor you and your wife if you want to come here. And that's exactly what they did. And they became citizens, within the requisite time frame. And it was interesting growing up within an immigrant family, because they still have their traditions and their way of raising children from the old world, right? But here we are in America, during, the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, and you're trying to embrace American values, and it conflicts a lot.
And you have these very Italian parents,
very
Sicilian
Italian
parents,
Sicilian no less. God forbid you wanted to discuss abortion or living with someone or having kids out of wedlock. No, it was totally against their traditional values. But what I did appreciate and shocked me very much about my parents, and shouldn't, because I see it with other immigrant families, is they very much were proponents and coaches and motivators to not just my brother but me. They wanted to see their daughter go to school. She had to go to college. She had to go to graduate school. She had to be everything that they had not been provided the opportunity. And I see that very much in other immigrant families as well. And I love it very much. You need to get ahead. And, here in the United States, it's through education at times. But I was also so proud, and still am, of my parents who, without a high school education, they became business owners through their sheer grit and hustle. And you see that with other immigrant families here as well. So it's not just through educational opportunities or educational institutions, but also any sort of opportunity that comes your way.
So what type of business did they have?
My dad's a leather repairman.
Love it. I love it.
Is
he
my
still
mom's
doing it?
He's 86, so he actually this year he's like, I'm done, Claude. Just take me off
now. Like I've done it. I'm 86 years, or I'm 86 years old. I'm gonna hang up the leather strap.
Me, honestly, because he's been complaining for the past 10, 15 years. I'm old. I want to be retired. I got to enjoy my retirement. And then if he got a call from a client, he's like, yeah, I'm ready. Give it to me. He still has that hustling mentality. And because both my mom and my dad, because they weren't given the option of schooling back then, they would apprentice with someone. So my dad apprenticed with a shoemaker and my mom apprenticed with a seamstress. And they utilized those skills here in the United States, to open up their own shop where they did leather repair. And they repaired every sort of leather good, from shoes to attaché cases, purses, belts, jackets, anything of that nature. And it was out of their house. They didn't exactly put up a shingle outside somewhere paying rent. They always wanted to have control of everything.
But isn't that how it was done though? Then too, it'd be like you had your house or your apartment, and the store was downstairs. And
yes,
it was all
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And it was totally convenient because they were there for my brother and I as we were growing up. And if there was any school events, or there was or any school projects or excursions, they were able to schedule free time to be with us. My dad would drive me to school in high school and college every single day because it was really nice. It was our time. And on Saturdays when I was in grammar school, I would go with him to do his deliveries in the city every Saturday. And it was our time together, listening to country music.
Country music, really?
Oh, there was a lot of stations back then in the 80s that would play country music. My dad loves anything country. And so
that's so interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's like embracing the America.
Exactly. Embracing America. He's a huge John Wayne fan. If there's any John Wayne Western on TV, everybody's got to watch it. No one can take the control from him.
That's so funny. And did they eventually learn to speak English, or didn't they?
My mom did. And my dad does as well, but not as proficiently as my mom. And my mom taught herself not by going to ESL school. No. She had this old Italian English dictionary, and she would buy these old Harlequin romance novels.
Oh, come on.
I'm not kidding you. And she would sit there, and these were the thin Harlequin romance novels, and she would have the dictionary, and she would look up every single word. And she told me it took me hours just to finish a sentence, until I got to the point where it took me hours just to finish a paragraph, until I got to the point where it took me hours to finish a page. And so that's how her determination and her grit. I to this day, I'm in awe of her, because I don't know if I could do that if I ever went to another country and do what she did while she was raising me. Because it was in those early years that they first came here.
Oh, I love it. Like, and I do hear a lot of those stories so too, that like you don't know how to speak English, and they learned by watching soap operas or just TV. And it's very similar, just but I mean, and Jen, I feel like you can relate to this though, because didn't your dad take over your grandfather's business?
Yeah, so my great-grandparents came from Italy in 1912, and they were stone carvers, and so they opened up a monument place. So they make tombstones. Awesome. And so my dad's fourth generation. But, and I don't know if you're the same, my dad now, he's 62, so he's still young, but he's looking for his exit strategy, right? And he never... it was the same thing. It was the expectation, he didn't go to college. So it was the expectation that we all go to college and that we all have master's degrees and beyond. But now everyone he didn't encourage any of us to go into the business. And so now he's like, okay, now who wants it? We're all like, oh, other careers. But yeah, so did you ever learn the trade of,
it's funny you say that. No, and my dad and my mom, they never asked or pressured my brother or I to learn either one of their trades. I don't know. I guess in their minds, being here in America, they just thought, no, you got to go to school. I want to see you guys as doctors or lawyers or bankers or teachers, get that college degree, get that graduate degree, get what was not provided or offered to us. And every milestone that my brother and I hit, the educational milestone, I would see my parents just beaming, so happy. And it was a victory for them as much as for my brother and I.
So it's funny. So my family, my dad's side of the family is from Ireland. So when my grandmother came over with her sister, and her sister came over first, and she was like, come on over, come join me and Art Blackman. And they had a gas station in my town where I grew up in Chester, Connecticut. And they started while people were getting gas, they started serving them hot dogs with this hot pepper relish recipe that they had. And then they started selling more hot dogs than gas. And my grandmother took over the business, now called Blackie's, and it's been in my family since 1928. My dad took over, and now my brother and my mom run it. But a similar thing, there was no pressure, someone needs to run this business. It just happened to be my sister was running it with my mom, and after my dad passed away, and now my brother's doing it. But it was just because they want to be a part of it,
right?
Because it's such a big part of our family and our giant extended family, though, too. And the only reason my dad kept running it was just because he lived. My grandmother lived next door, and we lived down the street. So
yeah,
and he still worked there twice a week anyway. And those are the days he went to go hang out with his mom, and he cooked hot dogs, and watched Yankee games and
watch the Yankee games. I'm listening to the country music, right? Yeah.
But and I love those stories. That just it makes my heart feel warm whenever you hear those traditional hand things down, or family business and immigrant businesses. I love it.
The human interest story is always very compelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it also, makes our stories interesting, because it makes us who we are. I'm sure, the word grit has been brought up so many times today. And I'm sure, Claudia, that it's your parents and how hard they worked that instilled that grit into you to get where you are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I see it with all of my colleagues or my teammates as well, how they're influenced by family members and friends. and they learn sheer determination and grit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you talking about your mom, I'm like, Claudia, I think I know where you got it.
Let me tell you, she is the anchor to the family, all right. We butt heads a lot, so, but very much so. I truly, being now the week after Mother's Day, I do appreciate everything that she's done.
And so sort of related, but it just made me think of this because when I picture, Italian mom, I was just hearing about that restaurant in New York that all the chefs were Italian grandparents. I started watching the movie last night.
I want to see that movie, Vince Vaughn's. Yes. I'm reading the reviews. I shouldn't be doing this. I haven't seen the film, but I'm reading the reviews and I'm thinking, oh my God, I know these women. Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go to this restaurant. I'm like, how have I not heard of this until now? And it was at my niece's graduation on Sunday. And my sister was mentioning it, and I was like, wait, this is an actual restaurant? And like now I hear that it's not just Italian grandmas; it's just grandmothers who take over the kitchen and cook whatever their cuisine is.
That is phenomenal.
I want a reservation. Like I really want.
So do I. Even though I don't even want to go driving out to Staten Island, but for that I would do it.
Well, it's also funny that you live in New York and you're like, I'm not, or I guess you live in Connecticut, but you work in New York and you're like, I'm not going to Staten Island. Whereas like we're like, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to claims.
Yes, our jobs, right?
Back to claims. But throughout your career though in claims, like what have you seen as one of the major shifts or the changes in the claim industry that it's like a pressure point for you?
Yeah, let's see.
Let me list the ways.
Right? How's it changed? I mean, in terms of what claims I see from an EPL perspective, of course, I can't speak from any other perspective. There's always going to be discrimination claims, retaliation claims, all the time. And now with the new executive orders coming down the pike and anti-DEI, you're going to be seeing a lot of these reverse discrimination claims coming down the. I think we've seen a few trickle in lately.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just interesting. I mean, EPL does not bore you, and it's just interesting to see the arguments and whether or not you're going to find a jury or even a mediator that's going to sympathize with this.
Yeah.
The really irritating points are the wage and hour claims. They're so expensive, these class actions, especially in which jurisdiction. Out in California, it's like the worst.
I was just about to ask if you write in California as soon as you said wage and hour claims. Oof.
Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, and then for the most part, it's only defense. We're not like Bermuda, who provides indemnity. God bless them.
Yeah.
But still, it's nonstop. Worker classification, overtime, meal and rest break periods. So I haven't seen any decrease in those ever. And instead, it's been steady and also a steady uptick. Pay Transparency Act claims are coming down the pike. I think we've got over 14 states that have enacted statutes of some sort. I know Washington's pretty pivotal. And there's a case before the Supreme Court that they're trying to decide who's a bona fide applicant under that. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's trying to be up on the trends, really.
Yes.
Not just handling the claims themselves, but being able to understand what's going to be coming down the pike. And that's where speaking with our attorneys is helpful, because you both represent insureds and you see these claims and defend these claims more often. And I know that it's extremely important for us to be aware of them so that we can also advise our underwriters so that they're prepared to address accounts and how to best calculate and the cost factor with premiums. So we do our best, at least here in Starr, where we try to bring in counsel to interact with our underwriters whenever they do seminars or webinars about issues, because it's just so important to gain that information, to be aware of those trends. And I know our underwriters appreciate it, and it's a two-way street. I'm sure that our defense counsel appreciate it as well.
And do you find that your insureds are receptive to like training or education on these change in trends so they can adjust internal practices?
That's a good question. It depends on the company. I find
Sure
that
it is.
yeah, it depends on the company. I know, and even with the companies, it also depends on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
The larger companies will have those risk management teams, general counsel that may or may not have experience in insurance, in defense work. And if they do, and they also are receptive to wanting to learn and improve, then it's a win-win, right? Then you have other companies, large or small, who may not have the experienced general counsel or risk manager or even CFO, and who may not want to be open to changes because either they're defensive about the decisions that they've made, or it just takes too much time or too much money to invest. And we do our best to try to persuade them to think differently, because at the end of the day, I always encourage them, please listen to your attorney. Please listen to what recommendations they're giving you. Consider investing time and money in bringing them in to redraft your handbook, to redraft or create new protocols or processes that will help you handle claims if they should ever arise, or even prevent them from arising in the first place. And I've been successful in introducing attorneys and law firms to certain insurers where they've developed long-standing relationships, which is great.
Yes.
But in other times, it hasn't worked out. It really depends on the individual.
And that's fantastic. Like, I find that sometimes I had a recent EEOC claim, and the EEOC wanted the employee handbook, and I took one look at the employee handbook, and I was like,
like
you just went to like employeehandbook.com and printed it off. And I told them,
and then went over to LegalZoom and
exactly. And so, like, I really, you try to have those gentle conversations with them of like, you can prevent this from happening. And I know in California, a lot of our attorneys will, once a PAGA claim comes, or if they think one is coming, we'll do a review of their payroll every 6 months or every year to make sure to heat it off and fix it, rather than, get that demand letter and then spend $50,000-$75,000 in defense costs trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, it's and not unlike the conversations I have with some of my insureds when, you might want to have a protocol for an incident report, like if someone falls, you might take some pictures,
write a little note.
Just say who was there, there's cameras, maybe save the footage, just these few little steps. It'll help us later.
Just some basic steps.
Well, Claudia, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. I could sit here, I think, the rest of the day and just have you tell us stories about your parents and growing up in your house. I kind of want to come over for Sunday dinner.
You should. My mother makes great sauce, not gravy sauce.
It's only gravy around here. It's I think that's like a PA Philadelphia.
I think you're right.
Because I'm not Italian, but I have an Italian aunt, and it was always sauce.
Yes, sauce.
Is it gravy in your house, Jen?
No, sauce.
Okay, so it's
sauce,
just
absolutely.
Philadelphia. It's
just maybe, yeah.
But before I let you go, Claudia, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
Let's see. Don't be afraid. Take chances.
Yeah, your parents weren't afraid.
Yeah.
They took a chance.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what I would say. Don't be
I
afraid. Take chances.
think that's great advice. And advice that you can keep with you forever.
Advice that I keep forever: be tactful when you can be. There are certain situations where you do not want to be blunt.
Yes. Yes. That is a lesson that's hard to learn for some.
Some. That, and just live your life to the fullest.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important one. Live it
I
to the
love that.
fullest.
You only get one shot.
Yeah, you got that right. But ladies, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a blast.
Yes.
I so enjoyed it.
It was so nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, right. Finally. I'll still do this once in a while for you, Jennifer. I'll still do this.
Thank you.
Well, yes, Claudia, it's been such a pleasure. And of course, for everyone listening, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to Claims Never Sleep. You can find us on your favorite streaming platform as well as YouTube. And thanks for tuning in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.